The thing I love about these kind of events is the ability for us collectively to be in a space and share knowledge. When you think about reality capture, it is a balancing act. You have that teeter-totter. On one side you have time, the other side you have accuracy. And if I'm going to be really accurate, I got to take a little extra time. And if I'm going to be really, really fast, I got to give up some accuracy. And the technology is moving things closer to the fulcrum point. You know, and you're always sweating, well, which one am I going to use? Am I going to use SLAM? Am I going to use LiDAR? Am I going to use 360 photos? Well, it all comes down to need. In the world of reality capture, you start at the end. From there, you will choose the appropriate tool and or combination of tools to get you to your goal. As an industry, we do have a tendency to focus on the time of collection. How fast does a spinning box spin? But really, it's about the time to consumption. How long does it take to get me to a point where I can make a tangible decision for my organization that is impactful and meaningful? Collection is one cog in a very, very large wheel. Now, what you see on there is mobile data using what's called Flash. It allows you to take 20 million points of measurements in 15 seconds. So you can see your point cloud data, you can see your 360 photos, you can see your SLAM data all on the same platform and democratize that across all your stakeholders. This is no longer about buying a singular device to solve all my ills. It is about starting the process of building out a digital toolkit. That digital toolkit will provide the success down the road. The world that we live in is looking for the ability that I can instantly consume that data and make a tangible decision. And I think those days are coming. Well, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing today? You know, when you come and do these things and you come and talk, many times you find yourself wondering, what am I going to talk about? What is something that I bring to the table that would be of interest of anybody in the audience? So my initial thought when I was asked to speak was having a conversation around, does your technology have a personality? Or do you impart a personality on a piece of technology? Now, I think as time goes along, as AI becomes more and more prevalent in the space, I think you're going to see that actually begin to occur as the individuals that write and learn and teach the AI, potentially some of their own personality. Then I thought, well, maybe that's a little too esoteric and maybe a little too far out there. Maybe I try to find something that's a little more down to earth. So then I thought about, well, for years I've had this conversation internally within the reality capture space, and I mentioned it at the very first RCN conference when I spoke at the very first time, that I gave a speech about, and I called it the shuns. And basically how everything we do in reality capture happens to end in the word TION, or the last four letters. Whether it's documentation, visualization, collection, consumption, democratization, it all kind of has that same ending to it. So hence the name, and I called it the shuns. So I thought, well, let's talk about consumption. But when at 2 o'clock in the morning last night, when I got up to make sure my slides were accurate, I came to the realization that maybe, just maybe, we'd simply have a conversation and talk about the industry as a whole. Not one particular function of consumption, not one particular function of collection, but the industry as a whole. The thing I love about these kind of events is the ability for us collectively to be in a space and share knowledge and speak eloquently about what we do as a manufacturer, what you do as a service provider, what you do as an industry professional, and the sharing of ideas. And albeit, I'll agree, some of you may completely disagree with some of the things I say. That's okay. Actually, that's fine. I prefer to have that kind of conversation because it reminds me of my son. My son was a really good football player. I coached him for a number of years, and it got to a point where me coaching him was an untenable situation because he would come to me and he would say, "Dad, how come all you do is tell me what I do wrong? You don't tell me what I do is right." I said, "Son, you never learn by your success. Success is a result of learning from your mistakes. When I was younger and I was a salesman, my first job as a salesman, I would literally go out and I would just, man, I was gung-ho, I was ready to go. I was out there regurgitating knowledge like anything, right? Like a bad night with bad tequila. And I'd be sit there, and then I came to the realization, when I won a deal, I didn't learn much. So I began looking, interrogating my own self through some self-reflective function, and interrogating the deals I lost. And that's where I found myself becoming a better and better and better salesman. And that's kind of why, when I think about the concept of this phrase, and there are people in this room that have heard me say this phrase before, I have a love-hate relationship with the phrase digital twin. I do. Because I don't believe, honestly, if you took the collective information within the confines of this structure, you won't find a single vendor or manufacturer that actually does it all. There is an academic definition of digital twin. There is a meaning to digital twin. We all participate in it. We all do it to a point. But that's as far as we can go. We were all a bunch of little boys, blues, sticking our fingers in the dikes, trying to stop the same flow of information. But we're all not there. We haven't stopped all the leaks. So then I began having this internal conversation about, what do the various technologies do? So if you think about the ecosystem that exists within reality capture, you have 360 photos, handheld scanning devices, whether they're structured light. Of course, now everybody's got a scanner in their pocket. You got the SLAM algorithmic collections, right? You've got photogrammetry and the other perfunctory processes around photogrammetry, like NERF and some of the up-and-comers like NERF and GOSP and these others. You've got terrestrial LiDAR scanning. So I have this internal conversation in my head. And I looked at 360 photos, for example. When I was here at FARO, when FARO acquired HoloBuilder, and I was having a conversation with the HoloBuilder team, and we were talking about what they do. And yes, there are other 360 photo applications out there. And I said, well, it's real simple. You guys do a visual twin. Because unfortunately, 360 photos will never get to the digital twin stage if you look at the academic definition. And then I think about, well, what about SLAM? Right? I mean, everybody understands what SLAM algorithmic collection is, right? It's like, from a laser perspective, it's like throwing talcum powder in a room. It's everywhere. Well, SLAM algorithm collection is about the space. Not the individual components contained within that space, but about the space itself. Yes, I know that the ductwork is there. Yes, I know that the mechanical piping is there. Yes, I can see the architectural seating and the parapet walls and the spanned balcony and all that other kind of components. I can see all that. But am I going to run deep-seated analytics? Am I going to run floor flatness? Am I going to run steel deformation? No, I'm about capturing the space, whether it's interior and exterior. It's a mobile device. I can fly it. I can drive it. It's about the space. It's a spatial twin. And then I thought about, well, what about terrestrial LiDAR collection? 2 millimeter less accuracy. Well, how is it used? Well, it's obviously used in the world of BIM. We use it for coordination efforts. You can use, I honestly believe SLAM algorithmic collection is good, very, very well versed to the world of BIM coordination. But I don't think I would use SLAM algorithmic collection if I'm a high purity stainless steel piping contractor working in the pharmaceutical industry and I got to make a flange-to-flange connection on 16-inch pipe. That might be problematic. Because if I'm an 1/8 inch off on high purity stainless steel pipe and I already got 2 welded flanges and that 1/8 inch, I'm not going to suck it together with a come along. When I first served my apprenticeship 40 years ago, I worked in the General Motors plants. That was a space where, if you were within 10 inches, you were good enough, and it was bang to fit, paint to match, right? So So I started having this conversation, and we've all have this. So I have this idea that the terrestrial LiDAR standing is a constructible twin, spatial twin, logarithmic collection, visual twin, anything that I just need to consume it. All I got to do is see it. You know that old phrase, right? If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Well, luckily for me, I'm very rarely in the wrong room unless I'm in the room by myself, because there's always somebody in the room smarter than me, right? I got Pete Kelsey back there. I don't know how he does it. He probably walks in every room and he realizes, man, I'm in the wrong room. I know Irene feels that way. She has to work with me. She's got to sit there and say to herself, what am I doing with this guy? Oh my gosh. But the difference between knowledge and wisdom, what is that? A tomato. But what is a tomato? A fruit. A tomato is a fruit. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing you don't put it in fruit salad. Sometimes, as a collective, we have a tendency to talk knowledge and not talk wisdom. We regurgitate information, but we don't take the knowledge and look at it through life's lens. And in reality capture, I think that's what we have to do. We have to begin having a conversation internally through the work lens, the life lens, the experience lens. I remember in 2004, now I'm starting to date myself a little bit. Anybody else in here over 62 years old? Well, I am the most vintage guy standing in this room at this point. It was 2004. I was actually at the United States Olympic short track skating trials. I was actually a DJ for the USOC speed skating trials. And I got a phone call from a gentleman who worked with a company called View by View. View by View wrote a white paper around the idea of BIM. And this is 2004, around the idea of BIM at the Letterman Digital Arts Center in California. It was one of the very first deep-seated white papers around the concept of BIM. The company I was working for at that time, we were drawing in 3D in the late 80s, early 90s. We were already drawing in 3D. And we were downloading the fabrication, sheet metal applications. We had bolt-on. Actually, we had our own application because AutoCAD was just the kind of a up-and-comer at that time and really hadn't entrenched itself yet. And they began using a bolt-on that we did have for AutoCAD to design all the piping systems and so forth. And he said, Kipp, this is an amazing new idea. It's going to go everywhere. Once we saved so much money. We did the entire job with, very few change orders and yada, yada, yada. It wasn't long. And then everybody was coming to me and they're going, hey, you have that BIM software? And I'd be like, you realize that doesn't exist, right? There's no such thing as the BIM software. It's a process. It is a process that can be achieved through a myriad of resources, not just a single function. And I believe that with digital twin as well. Digital twin, in my opinion, is not the end result. The digital twin is the process to get to that end result. And for example, I think right now I had a conversation with John Niles, and we were having over a bourbon, and we were having this conversation around the concept of digital twin. And he said, Kipp, probably the best example of a digital twin right now is a Tesla car. So you get in the car, you look at the screen, and on the screen is a picture of what? Your car. What else do you see about your car? See your tire pressure, oil gauge, charge rate, everything you need to know about that vehicle is in that image. And then you step on the gas and what happens? And now it tells you what's occurring, that you had an input device in not the gas pedal, the electric pedal, but you had an input into that environment. And now you're seeing the effect of what you did on that digital twin on that little screen. If you think about digital twin and extrapolate it out to the concept of buildings, That's really what a digital twin is. It's not just, hey, I scanned a rock. I created a digital twin of a rock. No, you created a copy of a rock. You did not create a digital twin. Show me the deep-seated analytics you're going to run on that rock. Show me what happens if I hit that rock with a hammer digitally. Then we can talk, maybe you're getting there. So my idea, my thought process when I talk, I'm not going to tell you I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I've already admitted to that. Now, but I do have 27 years of work and life lens in this space. I've been in construction longer than computers. I've been in the BIM world before it was an acronym, and I was involved in scanning when they weighed as much as the average man in the 1960s. So I do have a little bit of hope that I have a little bit of wisdom to impart. So everything we do is about balance. You think about that, and because when you think about reality capture, it is a balancing act. I say this very often. You have that teeter-totter. On one side you have time, the other side you have accuracy. And if I'm going to be really accurate, I got to take a little extra time. And if I'm going to be really, really fast, I got to give up some accuracy. It's the nature of the beast. It's the way the technology works. But then, as everything, just like my PowerPoint has evolved from consumption to let's have a conversation about the industry, technology is beginning to evolve as well. And the technology is moving things closer and closer and closer to the fulcrum point, where speed of collection is increasing to the point that it's beginning to truly affect the idea of how long it takes me to consume. The more things move to the middle, the more things progress together, the less play you will have in that teeter-totter. So what's happening is, as that evolution occurred, I'm coming to the realization that we're no longer talking about time and accuracy. We're really talking about when do I need it and how fast do I get there? It's about speed versus need. And so when things become to get balanced, you're starting to think to yourself, all right, I need it now. I need it today. But many of the speed tools require cloud processing. So I may not have the ability to instantly consume that data. So what am I going to give up? I'm going to give up some of my need for that speed of collection. Now, many of those tools also offer on-prem style registration or on-prem style consumption. Therefore, it does give me the ability then to potentially choose that I'm going to register or process locally. So now what am I giving up? I'm getting my need, but it's going to take me a little more time, right? So to that end, I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I am not a born and raised Yooper, so I do not have the Yooper accent up there, you know. But in that area, we have a thing called the Superior Dome. The Superior Dome's in the Guinness Book of World Records. It is the largest dome structure in North America, all wood, glulam beams. It's actually quite impressive. It's about 5 acres under roof. So I decided what I was going to do is do a little bit of a test. So I took what used to be HoloBuilder, our new platform called Sphere XG. It basically has 3 type modes: static, continuous, and video mode. Basically a 360 capture tool. And I went on site and I did 2 walks. I did an interior and an exterior walk. In the first interior, it took me 13.26 minutes. The file that's created is roughly about 12 gigabytes. I downloaded it from the camera and I pushed it up to the cloud. I did the same thing on the exterior, and you can see it's relatively, minute to data size is relatively static. And what I got out of it was 277 waypoints. 277 from that video mode. I got 277 individual points of reference looking at that particular facility internally. The total time of upload, process, and down, and yes, I have a very good internet at my home, was about 3 hours. Statically, now, in my former life, I was an estimator, and I have a tendency to look at these things very analytically. So I said, let's do the math, right? So if I allow 10 seconds per click, 10 seconds to walk to the next point of reference, I would take me 5,540 seconds, or roughly 1.43 hours. But the difference is I got to wait, instantaneous consumption. So you look at that and you might say, well, why would anybody use a video mode if it's going to take me 3 hours to get it back? Well, let's extrapolate that data. Let's assume a burden rate. Any service contractors out there? You know what your burden rate is, right? Insurance, taxes, wages, and benefits. That's what it's cost you to do something per man hour. I use $75 simply because it makes the math really easy at $1.25 a minute. But if you have a burden rate of $1.25 a minute, if I walk that site in video mode, it costs me $16.58. That is my cost of acquisition. How long it took me to acquire those images. If I took a static scan, it would take me the 93 minutes. It cost me $116.25. The cost differential of that capture mode allows me to collect that job site 6 more times for an apples to apples comparison. Now, the reason I bring this up, this exists in static scanning too. This is a correlating function to the other processes defined within the world of reality capture. So if you're not looking at the cost of acquisition and what is the actual implications of changing different speeds, you're missing out. So I decided, you know what? Let's take it a little bit farther. Let's assume this is a 52-week project. So 277 waypoints. Over the course of the year, it would cost me $6,045 to capture that once a week for 52 weeks. If I was using static collection mode. And that's not including driving to and from. That is not including, drinking coffee, going to get a smoke, going to the restroom. This is just capture time. Because you're going to do those things no matter which mode of capture you use, right? If I use video mode, it costs me $862.16. The cost savings just between those video modes would pay for the use of the Sphere XG platform for an entire year on that project. But my trade-off is I'm going to have to schedule myself. I'm going to have to understand when do I need it and what is my trade-off that I'm willing to give. So if you were using this in, let's say, a construction site, everybody knows what a schedule of values is, I assume, right? As a subcontractor, I have a schedule of values where I got the entire building broke down by cost basis by area. Then it goes to the general contractor who's got a schedule of values, and I'm part of his schedule of values. Of course, his schedule of values is much bigger than my schedule of values, and therefore I'm only maybe 20% of his schedule of values, but he still needs my number, and he's got to go to the owner, because if he doesn't bill the owner, then we don't get paid. So he comes to me and says, Kipp, I got to have this to the GC by Thursday, which means I need it by Wednesday, which means I need it by Tuesday, right? So I call up Pete Kelsey, and I say, Pete, I need you to go out there, and I need you to go capture area A. But here's the problem. I need it now. I can't wait. Because if you do it at the end of the day, there's a distinct possibility I might get it back till tomorrow, and then it's too late. So I'm going to I think the mentality around this is probably going to be around a hybrid function. I'm going to tell Pete, you know what, go capture area A, capture it statically because I can instantly consume it. And while you're there, could you do me a favor? Could you do B and C, area B and C too, video-wise? Because we really won't need that till next week, and that will be a good benchmark for next week. And I think the same exists when you look at some of the tools I'm going to talk about in a minute about reality capture. I think that same thought process holds true. So when you choose what option, now it's no longer, is it just time versus accuracy? You've got the speed and need function. And then really what happens is your level of importance of when you actually need it is probably going to dictate which potential mode you use. Whether it's potentially, depending on use case, whether it's SLAM or whether it's terrestrial scanning. Well, life is always full of choices. And, and you're always sweating, well, which one am I going to use? Am I going to use SLAM? Am I going to use LiDAR? Am I going to use 360 photos? Well, it all comes down to need. In the world of reality capture, you start at the end. You don't go to the solution first, you start at the end. From there, you will choose the appropriate tool and or combination of tools to get you to your goal. So, I've always had this phrase internally that as an industry, we do have a tendency to focus on the time of collection. How fast does a spinning box spin? Now, I argue that the most expensive person in the room is not the guy pressing start. It's the guy sitting behind the computer screen waiting for the data. Because if he doesn't have what it needs, everything starts to shut down. So, but we do as an industry, from a marketing perspective, I understand it, we want to focus on the time of collection. But really, it's about the time to consumption is really what matters. How long does it take to get me to a point where I can make a tangible decision for my organization that is impactful and meaningful? That's truly what we need to focus on. How long from the time I press start to the time I can begin to consume that data in a tangible way? That's the most important part of this. Collection is one cog in a very, very large wheel. So, to that end, we took our FARO Focus Premium Scanner, and I'm going to tell you a quick little story about these two modes. We took a FARO Focus Scanner and we put a Rico Theta on the top of it, and we created a new solution, and we call it Flash technology, where it literally allows me to collect 20 million of measurements using color imagery in 28 seconds per scan. Now, is there a trade-off? Yes. The data is a little less dense. Not as dense as it would be with a good full high-res scan, but I believe, and once again, we could probably have an argument on this subject, I believe from a detail standpoint, you are better off as an end user to take 40 low-res scans than it is to take 10 high-res scans. The overlap is what matters. The overlap creates detail. The overlap creates geometry. If I just take 10 scans, I'm looking at a room from only 10 points of reference. If I take 40 scans, I'm filling in the gaps where the data is thin, and I'm getting 40 variants of reference. So I'll argue lower res scans at greater volume is more applicable than lower scans at higher resolution from a detail standpoint. So with this, I could take, how long, if you take the old math that I was talking about, if you did 277 scans, right, and I use a FARO Focus Premium, and the average color scan of FARO Focus Premium at what we call a nominal resolution is roughly about 2 minutes versus 28 seconds. The cost of acquisition is dramatically different. Is there a need for it? Once again, I think you're going to be back to a hybrid function. I think you're going to use this for especially for areas that maybe I want to use as connective tissue, and I want to get there really, really quick. It might be good enough for many applications, but otherwise I could use it as a way to get from point A to point B so I can go inside the mechanical room and get that deep-seated data. So I'm not running a pure, static mode process in relationship to the resolution of my scans. You don't have to do that anymore. So we gave you basically a Swiss Army knife of scanners. Then we announced, and this is one of the impetuses why I changed this, we made an announcement last week of the new Orbis SLAM algorithmic collection tool. Now what you see on there is mobile data using what's called Flash. It allows you to take 20 million points of measurements in 15 seconds. I know most people that run SLAM know that the minute you stop, what happens? Depends on how long you stop, right? But if you stop too much, the data begins to fail. It ends up being a problem. We figured out a way to bypass that, allow us to capture what we call a flash scan, where I can get high-res data and be able to actually tie the mobile data together quickly. Once again, I believe it's going to be a hybrid function. I think you're going to use the mobile data where you need to use the mobile data, and you're going to use flash scans where you need to flash scan, and you're going to end up with a hybrid result. Then, of course, you can push it up the sphere, and you can use that for a democratization tool, and you can consume everything in the same platform. So you can see your point cloud data, you can see your 360 photos, you can see your SLAM data all in the same platform, and democratize that across all your stakeholders. So last week, what we did, we had a signals conference. It was a user group, one of the very first ones we've done, focused on the AECO space, the construction, engineering, owner space, facility space. And one of the great things that we were able to do is, I've spent a lot of time at the Oracle Innovation Lab in Deerfield, Illinois. I went there multiple times as it was coming out of the ground, going vertical. I've been there multiple times since, supporting Oracle in their efforts. It was actually one of the first places in the country where we took Spot the Robot Dog with a FARO LiDAR scanner, collected on it, and I literally dropped it off the stairs in less than 4 minutes. There was a period of time when Boston Dynamics would tell you I was the most aggressive spot driver in all of North America. And I crashed it more than I care to know. I've only broken 2 scanners, good for me. But I wanted to know what it did. I wanted to know its limitations. I wanted to know where it failed. Because as I said before, you learn from the failures, you never learn from the success. So last week, we're in the Oracle Innovation Lab. So what I did is, up until about a year ago, the FARO Focus Premium Scanner was the FARO Focus S Plus was our primary go-to-market scanner. We took a FARO S Plus, we set it on one side of the lab, and I said, look, if we're going to the lab, let's do labby stuff. Let's do a test. So I took a scanner and I stuck it on this side of this, and I made it so the resolution and quality settings were equal. And I set up an S Plus, and I set up a FARO Focus Premium running flash, and then I had another guy with the Orbis. And I had that person press start for one collection. Just one point of reference, one spin of the box. And I let everybody else go. So everybody started scanning at the exact same time. And everybody ended when that scanner stopped. And then we came back and say, all right, what'd you do? Now, this guy did the scanner dance, right? For roughly 4 minutes. He just sat there and he just watching paint dry. The guy in the middle used flash scans and captured the entire room. Did 14 scans in less time than it took to do one scan. The guy running the SLAM algorithmic tool, the Orbis tool, captured both the interior, first floor, second floor, and half of the exterior in the time that it took to capture one scan. The evolution, 13 months. So up until probably, I'm going to guess, maybe 5-6 years ago, you had this cornucopia of reality capture devices out there, right? And most of those devices still exist today. But we were all collectively selling against each other, right? The 360 photo guys were saying, oh, yeah, you don't need laser scanning. It's so difficult. It creates so much data, right? All you need to see it, that's all you need. And all the SLAM guys are going, look, man, all you got to do is walk. All you got to do is walk. Right? And the LiDAR guy's saying, man, that stuff's not accurate. And we're going back and forth at each other, selling against each other, not collectively working together. We were selling against each other. But in all honesty, we were all selling a different need. They aren't the same tools. My grandfather used to tell me all the time, the most expensive tool in the toolbox is the one you do not have. Right? I mean, think about it. What are these things? They're tools. They're wrenches. They're screwdrivers. There's nothing worse than needing a wrench and all you got is a screwdriver. I ask our people all the time, What do we sell? What do we honestly sell? And they come back and they say, we sell solutions. And I think every vendor in here will tell you that exact same phrase. We sell solutions. And I say, you're not right, but you're wrong. And they're like, you can't be both. And I said, yes, you can. Life is full of yin and yang. We sell time, productivity, and accuracy. How we do it is with these tools. If I can't save you more time, if I can't make you more productive, and I can't make you more accurate, there is no return of investment. Imagine if I was an employee, right? I'm always late to work. When I do get to work, I don't get my work done. And everything I do, you got to redo. What would you do with me? Get my check, right? And the trades, we called it, get the check. You're gone. Have a good day, right? Don't let the door hit you. We sometimes have to look at the technologies that way too. Think about technology as if they were an employee. What would you do with a tool that doesn't work anymore? What would you do with a tool that doesn't fit? Do you make it fit, or do you find a new tool? So sometimes you really have to take some introspect and consider the evaluation of what kind of tools you have in your toolbox. I don't believe that the days of having a singular tool to do everything exists anymore. The landscape of reality capture has grown too vast. The need has grown quickly. Everybody wants something, but they want something a little bit different. Right? 360 photos, to consume it, all you got to do is see it. If I'm an insurance inspector, that might be good enough. Right? So I constantly talk about the concept, it's about a digital toolkit. Do I need terrestrial scanning? Terrestrial scanning is obviously a staple of the reality capture world. You could probably do more with a terrestrial scanner than you can any other single tool in the toolkit. It's like a pair of vice grips. I can use it as a wrench. I think I've probably more than once in my life used it as a hammer. But it can fit about any size nut and bolt, right? And I think that's what it is, the way it is with terrestrial scanning. I think terrestrial scanners give you the greatest functionality and ability to do more. Obviously, you've also got the concept of SLAM algorithmic collection that provides a sense of mobility, gives you the ability to collect more data in less time, potentially even get to areas that are almost impossible to get with terrestrial scanning. But mobile scanning is what it is. It's mobile scanning. It has its drawbacks. It will always have its drawbacks simply because of the nature of the technology. But those gap between terrestrial and the terrestrial scanner and SLAM algorithm collection are slowly beginning to move towards the middle. So you're beginning to see a balance in those two collection modes where it's balancing the speed and the need, right? Handheld units, structured like scanners. I mean, there's plenty of them out there. They certainly have a place in the space. 360 photos, probably not a major construction site on the planet today that isn't using some form of 360 photos for progress tracking. I do have this argument internally. I know I sound like I argue a lot, right? I do have this conversation internally. Let's go with that. They say, many of the tools say construction progress management tools when you think about 360 photos, and I digress a little bit, and I simply say, guys, if you say that's who we are, that's what all we'll ever be. I believe that 360 photos have a much broader potential. For example, anybody in here an estimator or have been an estimator in their former life besides myself? All right, you go on a job site walkthrough, what do? Take photos. Get out your iPhone, take a bunch of 2D photos, got diner napkin or a piece of cardboard box and a Sharpie and you're taking notes so you can take it back to the, right? That's what you get when you ask your field guys to give you data, right? So, but the problem with 2D photos, I can trick a 2D photo contextually. If I stuck my hand like this when we're on a Zoom call, and we've all been on those before now, thanks to COVID, if I stuck my hand on a phone call, you say, oh my God, his hands are huge. No, it is about how close I place my hand to the camera that gives the perception that my hand is huge, right? Now, when you meet Maris from Novice, there's no perception there. That's a big dude, right? But you're seeing him in 3D. So I can say, well, why does the estimating group why aren't you using 360 photo capture in your estimating process? To give you contextual information that you can't achieve through a 2D photo. Why aren't we using it more in EDU functions in schools and facilities, right? It is so much more than construction progress tracking. There are a multitude of functions I think you could use it for, especially if you do service work, to provide clarity. And that's really what I think that tool provides, is clarity to an owner and to your other stakeholders. Obviously, the handheld devices, the handheld scanning, everybody's got a scanner in the pocket. If you've got an iPhone 12 or later, that too is beginning to progress more and more and more. Now, my story around those things, I say, look, I think they're really good. If I wanted to go Home Depot and get, if I wanted to scan this and get a countertop made for it, I would probably, scan it and I would take it to Home Depot and say, look, this is what I'm looking for. Could you get me a quote? But I'm not going to send it to Josh and have him make them. I'm going to use something else for that. But everybody has them. They have a need and they have the place. So I believe today, all of you in the room, if you're not doing this, you need to think about this. This is no longer about buying a singular device to solve all my ills. It is about starting the process of building out a digital toolkit. That digital toolkit will provide the success down the road. Because there's nothing worse, like I said, needing a wrench and all you got is a screwdriver in your toolkit. And the most expensive scan is what? The one you didn't take. So there's no such thing as redundant scanning. Scan more, scan often. In my many times I talk about the movie Prometheus. Of course, Irene's eyes are now rolling in the back of her head because she's heard this so many times. But the premise of it is, he throws the 3 balls in the air and it scans. My takeaways are that anybody can throw a ball in the air and instant access to the data. The world that we live in is looking for Prometheus-style moments. We're looking for the ability that anybody can do it. We're looking for the ability that I can instantly consume that data and make a tangible decision. And I think those days are coming. You think about the collection mode for 360 photo capture, like in Sphere XG, where I simply stick a camera on my hard hat and walk a building, and I walk around and I get my trajectories back with my waypoints. Anybody that's done SLAM collection, what's the process? You walk, right? Does the process change between video mode and 360 photos and SLAM it? No, not too much. Still just walking. Put one foot in front of the other, right? So I think the days of moving these technologies into the hand of the generalist are becoming more and more prevalent because the rocket science is already done. So we have an application called Flatness Check, and it really allows you to get a heat topo map in the field live with no registration in less than 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I think it's kind of a Prometheus moment. And I see that more and more happening. I think everybody in the industry that is actively working today are working towards more in that, and I think that's something you as the end user want. The days of, through some of the common themes I heard during the course of the week was, in some of the calls, the action was not locking somebody into an ecosystem, making it so other people can work with other applications and other tools. So, that's one thing we've done recently at FARO. We've kind of taken the company, we've kind of moved it into two different silos. one focusing on the collection operations, and those of us on the other side are focusing purely on the consumption end. How do I consume that data? And we're developing tools that we can accept data from anyone. It doesn't have to be our data. We want to make it so you have the ability to choose the tool or use the tools that you already own. We don't want to force you into our ecosystem. We want you to become part of the ecosystem. So Sphere XG is how we're doing that. And it's a cloud-based application. We provide cloud processing for all our data. You can register scans, move it to the point cloud, and never touch them until the project is created. I know for so many people in the room, that's a scary concept. Some people don't like the black box effect. But, if it gives you the ability to do other things that may be valuable, you can still go back to standards collection. So I wanted to thank all of you for your time. I know you guys are the diehard RCN fans here. Be blessed, everybody. Stay safe on your way home. Thank you.